Let's focus on JJ now. What was the earliest version of JJ like? How much did the character change from draft to draft? And then even more when Avan was cast in the role?
The earliest version of JJ, I was moving so quickly. The green light happened, and within months, I knew we had to shoot. So it was the most unusual experience I've ever had as a writer. I wanted this unsung kind of hero guy who wants to be a hero, and he's like a gamer, and he does all this like ambitious stuff on the screen, and then he does a night shift at 7-Eleven, and he's lost and kind of trying to find stuff in himself that is kind of reflective in the games he plays. So I knew I wanted that guy who was funny, who would kind of roll with whatever the fuck happened that night. And also underneath it all would just be this guy who, when everyone falls away from her mom, her dad, everyone, he's there for her, along with Pebbles, of course. And so I had this idea that I needed this character. This character is so important because the movie is so dark and it's so bleak at times that without JJ, it just goes into like this dirge. It could go into dirge land, and I did not want that to happen. And so when I got to see Avan's work for the first time, and we had a conversation, Avan is so charming and so fun and funny and and he's a writer, so he has a facility with we were on set and Avan would take these jokes and make them so much better. And he would just come up with lines of dialogue and like these ad libs, and, I'd be in edit. We'd be laughing on the set. We'd be laughing in edit. Like it's such a gift to work with an actor who can just elevate your writing and just make the character better and funnier,
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you.
Blushing over there yet?
Yeah. Oh yeah. This has been very sweet.
So I'm not sure, Avan, how specific you get with your backstory work for a character, but I always like to hear about that, especially for someone who becomes such an important ally to Claire. What do you think it is about him and his experiences in life that, made him a supportive believer when no one else in her life seemed to do that for her?
I think there's a stilted sort of development that he's gone through. I think that like JJ at his, like through maybe his family situation hasn't really like grown or developed into the person he's meant to be. He's sort of at a limbo stage in his life. And I think that, we played around with some backstory ideas about the idea of him, not being able to really afford to live outside of his home. Maybe he's still sort of like under the sort of larger umbrella of his parents. And that's sort of like, again, sort of stilted his growth and all this. And then I think somebody walks through the door who needs help and needs to be believed and needs to be believed in. And I think that something about that resonates with JJ and his need to be believed in as a person in his own private life, in his movie. I like to think about, I think good supporting characters are in their movie, and then in the middle of their movie, they get distracted by someone else's movie. And that's how I like to think of when I'm playing supporting characters, because it gains them strength, independence, and they're not just ancillary to progressing a story. And it builds a bit of the foundation of a person. So I think that in his movie, he's sort of like, listless and not sure what he wants, and then walks in through the door is somebody who desperately needs help. And that applies a purpose to this guy who sort of doesn't have one. So I think that's sort of where it comes from.
To put Veena on the spot now, I love hearing when actors can tell when a director behind the monitor is really feeling a take that they're doing. So did you notice Veena doing anything behind the monitor that told you that you were on the right track with the scene?
Yeah, I can't remember actually the exact scene or what it was, but I think you walked past me and you just put your hand on your shoulder and you're like, oh, you know what it was? It was by the Mustang with Maika after that scene. Mustang. Yeah. And he she put her hand on my shoulder, and it was just like a nice little solid moment. I like those. I mean, it's so fast paced and shooting is so, it's just shitballic scramble. It's just absolute mayhem at all times. So Veena always made time to make sure that everybody got their little piece of like, this is great, you're on the right path. And I think that's that's like the leadership quality that I think is super important. And she definitely did that for me.
Veena, a story question for you. Did you always know specifically where they would have the name conversation in the series, or did you ever consider moving that around at all?
Yeah, I mean, there was a moment where we realized, I think it was because everything was moving so quickly, they had never exchanged names. And I think we ended up ADRing it. There was a moment where I was like, wait a minute, they've never even said their names to one another. Like that formality of what we do. Hello, my name is blah, blah. Like there's no time for that. And so, I think we ADR'd it at some point.
I think we did too. I think wasn't it in the bedroom stuff? I think it was. Yeah. And which was a really, And again, the pace of this, I just think it's great. It's just really entertaining, and it's funny how like stuff like have they introduced it to it starts to not matter, because of the pace and then the thriller.
Right. Well, now I remember. Actually, we ADR'd. I think your last name. We ADR'd.
Right. Yeah. My last name because I was just Jay. Yeah, that's what it is. Because I know that we did that introduction scene, that little like sort of like, hey, oh by the way, while I'm cleaning her feet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's how intimate. I like that idea. Like, that's how intimate we are already. Right. And we haven't even really introduced each other as people. So it's interesting.
That is some A+ ADR, because I usually do have an ear for that. And that scene plays so smooth, and it also just speaks to what they're going through so well. So job well done in that respect. Avan, before I let you go here, I did kind of go down the rabbit hole of watching videos of you doing readings from Mixed Feelings online, and it did get me wondering, do you find that your exploration of identity working on that has influenced the roles that you're gravitating towards today?
I mean, I feel like I've sort of undergone a sort of a paradigm shift as far as my understanding of like what I'm interested in telling and stories that I'm interested in pursuing. And again, the a lot of the freedom of writing Mixed Feelings was a great window into like sort of talking about my own identity, my racial identity, and sort of being able to sort of decide what kind of roles and parts I wanted. Actually, I was in the middle of my book tour when we were shooting this. I was so tired doing this. I mean, and everyone was really supportive and helpful and all this stuff, and and forgiving. But I just come off doing the Mixed Feelings book tour. I think I fly in directly from doing that into complete night shoots. So I'd already done a month of traveling across the country, and then it's the most tired I've ever been in my life. But I was really well supported, and I think it sort of added to the sort of tired feeling of the stranger and him being ripped through this night at 4:00 in the morning. So yeah, it was. But yeah, I think Mixed Feelings is sort of become a sort of, again, a paradigm shift for the kind of parts that I'm looking at.
You got to keep delivering the content to the people, even if you're exhausted. I can tell you from my perspective, at least, it's worth all the time. Thank you guys so much again for chatting with me multiple times today. Keep staying safe, and congrats on the series.
Thank you, Barry.
Thanks so much.